Frank Greef, episode 2 of the Bothsides podcast. Mate, thank you for rejoining us. This is going to be an exciting, fresh taste of not only a business episode, but also venturing into the new topic of AI. And mate, we've been following your journey now, and I'm sure many of our followers have been seeing 3 of your posts a day on social media.
Sorry.
Mate, you've just come out the woodworks with this new founders table, new AI business. Can you just give us a bit of a background in terms of what's going on?
Love it. Easy.
Give us the update.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. Firstly, thanks for having me back. So the last time we spoke, I'm trying to remember, but for the punters out here who didn't listen. So Jark and I, last July,
your brother, by the way.
Yeah, Jark, my brother, last July, it was 2 years post our last business. We did the last business for 12 years before we exited. And so we wanted to reimagine how we'd start this time because last time all real estate agents were our clients, and we went, okay, the starting position for most businesses is what's the problem we want to solve, make sure there's product market fit, and go solve the problem and sell it to the person that that problem is appropriate for. We were like, look, rather for us, let's focus on who we want to solve problems for. Once we focus on that person or that type of person, then we'll figure out the problems. And the reason why is we just asked ourselves a really simple question, which was, who is the customer that we'd be happy to have for the rest of our lives? Because as long as we literally enjoy the company of our customer, then everything else will be fine. Because then we actually want to, we will actually create an incredible customer experience because we want to be with them. And we were like, we are so obsessed with business. Recently I had a conversation where someone said to me, business isn't my identity. It's a pathway to get to freedom, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I am unashamedly happy to say business is part of my identity, and I wear that like a badge of honor. And so we are founders. And so we want to create things that are really helpful and useful to founders. And so where it all started was with this idea is we can talk the language of a founder, of a business owner. We understand intimately the problems that they have, and not in the obvious way, let's start an online course or sell coaching. It was let's make things that are actually truly valuable to them. And so that's how it started. And so the founders table was, how do we create a place where we could literally change the landscape of Australia, the ecosystem of business? I spent some time in the US, and the way they treat business and the way they see business is so different. The way they celebrate success over there. And we're like, we could do that in Australia. And so the Founders Table was really born from this idea. And we were like, okay, if we create a space that every single week we invite these founders over, through the process of building incredible relationships, we're front running the customer relationship at the right time when we have a product. We will have earned their trust because we're doing something, delivering immense value for literally more than a year. And we never ask for anything. And through that, we'll also find out what are the problems they have. And so, some of the, hidden secrets I'll start to unpeel. In order to get to the Founders Table, you fill in a form, which is the most elite data capture you've ever seen. So we have now 550 founders across Australia, mostly ranging in the 10 million up revenue range. They fill in their name, their number, their email, what's the revenue of their business, what are the main problems they would solve in their business. If they could have one thing that could change the business forever, what would it be? And what's the biggest challenge? And in order to sit at that table, and each week there's 8 founders from across Australia, we have that data. And so that could be quite simply the most powerful piece of data ever.
So how many contacts did you say? 550 or
550? No, 550. 550. Wow. It's a small sample size of people we're talking to, businesses that are doing over $10 million revenue in Australia.
Niche, isn't it?
It's quite niche. But for 4.5 months to have that, that size of those businesses, it's pretty sweet.
I'll speak from first-hand experience. I'm not sure if you remember. I was actually at the first one.
Of course I remember, Kev.
Well, I'm not sure. Oh, you've had so many now. And the guests you've had on and the people that have been sitting at these tables has been wild. Now, I was at the first Founders Table, which was the smaller businesses, not at that scale. And the brains in that room and the way that they worked, it's the age-old saying, who you hang around is who you become. There are actually 4 people from that Founders Table that I speak to nearly every single week now.
Wow, that's epic.
So,
I love that.
First of all, thank you. But second of all, I can actually see firsthand what you've done. And it's even in my small ecosystem that you've created for me has been invaluable. So I can't even begin to imagine what opportunities can start to arise from mingling with these groups of people. And not to, pigeonhole people into certain categories like, oh yeah, I should hang out with you because you're successful. But you're creating an ecosystem that is truly unbeatable in my opinion. Now, my question is, what are you going to do with that?
Boom. Firstly, love that. It's one of our favorite things to hear. It's like when we hear post the connections that people make and some of the stuff they're doing and the deals that are being done, like that is just the best for us. Not that we get anything directly from it, but more knowing like, oh, such a simple moment and experience could like change the trajectory of someone's business and or life. Like I've had like one quick story before I get to the question. We've had one where a young gal absolutely crushing it. She's been in business for like 2.5 years, 10 million revenue in an e-com brand. And she's sat next to a very close connection of mine, but also a great friend whose business is worth about $1.5 billion. And he's just such a generous character that he just sat there and he was chatting to her the whole time. And I was taking a step back and going like, man, this is so cool because your worlds probably wouldn't have collided. Like I met him because I went to Necker Island and spent 4 days there. So in order for my connection, it cost me $75,000, right? But now I can help, Jacques and I can help facilitate this for other people. And I'm like, extrapolate that out years, shit's gonna get real exciting real quick. And so to your question, like, what do we get out of it? So a couple of really simple things. Jacques and I, we also are thinking such long-term strategy this time. I guess we have the luxury of time that we get to look at things in 10, 20-year time horizons. And so the question we just started with was, if nothing happens, i.e. we can't monetize through selling products, what would it look like if we knew every founder over $10 million in Australia? And everybody knew that we knew them. So everybody knew, like, if you want to be connected to someone in Australia, Jacques and Frank know them all. And we're like, just that metric, I can't tell you what it's worth, but I can tell you it's going to be worth a lot, right? And so that's probably the first and most important principle. And then the next is, hey, we are commercial animals, happily, unashamedly say it. So what are we going to get out of it? Well, we're building a product right now derived directly from the need that we've found in the Founders Table, which is, I last time I touched on a lot less. This time I'll touch on it slowly because we're bringing people along for the journey purely to build the intrigue around the product. But there is something that happens for business owners around about that range, 10 million and up, that they soon realize it's about who they know. And in the world of AI, which I talk about a lot these days on social media, the question we ask ourselves is, as things become infinitely easier to create, what matters the most in business in the next 5 years? And what can't AI change? And we believe it's true, real relationships. And so that's the little bit of magic I'll share, but that's what we're focusing on, and not building for people hearing like, oh cool, they're building another community they're going to monetize. We have no intentions to charge for the Founders Table. We believe that's part of its magic, because when people arrive, they haven't spent any money, and when they haven't spent any money, they don't expect a return on investment. So no one sits around the table trying to sell their service or pitch their business.
How much money did you spend on that yacht?
We spent $35,000 to rent the Mischief.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's an expensive lunch.
Yeah.
So you've invested, let's say, 50 grand in cooking lunches for people to connect without monetizing it.
Easily. So we did it in the Gold Coast 3 weeks ago. We did 3 in a day in the Gold Coast. Just that cost us 10 grand because we're flying our team there. We rented a $5.5 grand Airbnb. What we're baking... I'll change the word there. What we're banking on right now is this concept of unreasonable hospitality. So there's this incredible book that was launched by a business called 11 Madison Park, which was voted the #1 restaurant in the world. And the whole book is called Unreasonable Hospitality. The premise of it is the things you do to create a feeling in people will be the things those will be the stories to tell. And my favorite story in the whole book is one of the waiters overheard someone at the table say, I'm so sad. We've been in New York for a week, but we didn't get the New York hot dog experience, and we're leaving this afternoon. They heard that. They went down the street, they bought a hot dog, they brought it to the kitchen cut it up like fine dining style.
Wow.
Came to the table and goes, hey, I overheard what you said. We want to make sure you get your New York experience. Even as I say that story, I get goosebumps. and I've shared that many times at the table because that costs not much money, but that story is worthy of being in a book. And that's what we're trying to create, is a feeling where people leave that table and they go, I don't get it. What do you get out of it? I'm confused. And the more people are confused, the more we know we're onto something. And it's an intangible. If someone tries to copy it, they're like not understanding like the unreasonable amount of hospitality and value we're trying to deliver. You can never quite understand like where this is going.
I think at least I can speak of, I can see it a little bit and I can taste it a little bit just from Bothsides itself. So Bothsides, as you know, we started this just to learn from people like yourself. It's now turned into our own community and network where I'm seeing those intangibles, the magic dust that you're talking about. It's there. I can really feel it. The question is, how are you going to layer this out over the next 12, 18 months? Is this something where you're going to just, because obviously you're leaving breadcrumbs, and then is it a big product launch?
Yep.
What's it going to look like?
Yeah, good question. So again, back to the kind of the where it all started. Jacques and I are really big believers in, and I always make sure it's a Jacques and I, because like we are 50-50, we are co-founders, we're in this together. Any of these things, I get the privilege today to talk about it, but the magic is from both of our hands.
When's the Jacques episode?
Huh? Yeah, when's the Jacques episode? It'll be soon. We decided, like, again, another principle to move forward in business in 2025 is attention. And how do you being through the journey of building a business and getting the opportunity to sit down after the 12 years, do podcasts, and people want to hear stories, and the stories to tell were always the interesting things for people. We were like, how do we create the stories from the ground up? So how do we intentionally manufacture and strategically create stories that will happen from day one, and we can see where they're going? And so to answer your question is like, is there a product launch? Is like everything is strategically moving to this place where in October, November, we'll be launching this product. We have, as so many people ask, what is it? And that is all by design. There's nothing to do with, I'm scared that you'll take the idea and run with it.
Like, we were talking about this on the way in. We're like, what is this?
Yeah. and it's just because people are so curious, and that is by design. So we've just started to go deep onto like our long form YouTube series, and people came back and they're like, fuck, you guys didn't tell me what it is yet. And I was like, don't worry, like episode by episode, we were going to get there, and we're going to slowly reveal because that is more powerful than just saying what it is. Like, we're going to build anticipation till that moment. Hopefully don't let people down. Because that is what drives, like, that's the story to tell. And so we were really asked ourselves a question. You mentioned the Mischief Yacht. It was by design. We were like, okay, the Founders Table is working. How do we put this on the map? We rented the Mischief. People were outraged as to, like, you're spending 30 grand to have a lunch. No one does that. What is this? Then the AFR picks it up. Why did you rent a yacht for founders? Because we're creating these stories to tell through the process.
Was it free for those founders to go on?
Every single Founders Table has been free.
So,
and will be free.
Frank, it's interesting to hear the change in psychology between the first business to now, where this business sounds like you're doing a lot of market research by getting these founders to come network, essentially. Did the product you're going to launch for the founders manifest prior to starting the Founders Table, or was it during the process of understanding their problems?
So, truth be told, the product started before then.
Because I saw you did a trip to Sri Lanka.
That's right. Yeah. So the product started before then, and because this is how the product happened. Jacques and I were sitting in a car. We just finished a conversation with an amazing founder, and it's weird. This is like one of these weird stories to tell. In almost a simultaneous moment, we both looked at each other and we went, "That's the product." And because we were having this problem where we had this need, and we were looking and we were Googling, we were like, we couldn't find the thing that we were looking for. And we're like, holy shit, like, we need this. And so the Founders Table launch was actually, okay, we now know what we're going to do. Now we need to start to kind of having these conversations with founders and make sure we can test our hypothesis that multiple people need the same thing. Now, it's a very unique problem to solve. It's not going to be a Slack or you're going to have 1 million or billion users. It's a very specific need, but our belief is like the people who have this need, it'll be like, oh, holy shit. Like, how come I didn't think about that?
So you spoke about a pivot in your first long form YouTube
Yes.
video. Very sexy video, by the way.
Thank you.
So well done, Kai. Did a great job. But that pivot,
Yep.
what was it? So
Yeah.
was it a complete business change?
Completely different. And
Completely
so
different.
I'll actually share that because that was really interesting. So we had this concept, which was our first business. It's a really good business idea. It's a really great one. We believe the way collaboration happens in business, especially for founders, is fundamentally flawed. So a lot of businesses will be familiar with things like Miro or Monday, or essentially like boards where you like do creative thinking and collaboration. And a lot of them do like sticky notes and you like put ideas down. It's kind of recreating the whiteboard experience. The way we thought about that was placing a sticky note on a board is kind of like you've come up with that thing. And it's just a moment in time. I have no context of how you got to that moment. And so we were creating a product which helps using AI enhance your creativity. And so the idea behind it was we were creating what we call the idea space, which is through the process of building a business, you need to first research your business. You then need to validate your business idea. How can I tell if this is a good idea or not? You then need to think about your go-to-market strategy, your commercial strategy, and these different stepping stones to launch a business. And we were like, if we break down each one of these stepping stones and we create like little powerful AIs in each one of these, we can have the experience that you have a co-founder, but your co-founder is AI. So when you're talking about marketing, the co-founder, which is our AI tool, has been trained intimately on understanding marketing, and it knows the context of your business because you used our tool to research the product. And so when it's collaborating with you, it's not like when you jump onto ChatGPT and you're like, help me market something, and it's like, oh, here's 5 vanilla ideas. It's like, I understand what your business you're trying to solve, I understand who you're trying to solve it for, and I intimately understand marketing. And so it's collaborating with you in real time. And we were like, that is incredible. But the problem we had, and what we talked about in that video, was that product is really useful for a first-time founder. And once they get to product market fit, once people are using their product, it's no longer useful. And so the problem was we were building an incredibly useful tool for people who didn't have money to spend, and people who, once it's successful, will drop off the product. And so although it was powerful, it was like building in a product that was going to have churn. And so we had to continually find new people to build businesses with. And the stats are really brutal. It's like, 80 or 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. So you're building a product for people that like either are going to stop using it or going to fail. And so we were like, fuck. Like, you sometimes in business you find something that is useful, but who's going to pay for it? I had a really great example. A guy in my network, he'd built, when you drive into shopping malls and casinos and stuff, there's that sensor above the car park, which helps people if they've lost their car. And when you launch that, that's a really good problem to solve. But the problem is the shopping mall or casino or whatever, well, they were like, why do we don't want to pay for that because either way they're going to come and go.
Yeah.
And the consumer doesn't want to pay for it because they're like, well, why would I pay for it? I've come to your venue and I've spent money. And so no one wanted to pay for it, so the business failed, even though it's a useful problem to solve.
Wow.
I'm messaging my business partner right now to ask him to see if there's a question that's going to ask.
When you understood this idea that you had was no longer feasible, then what?
So then, so it was kind of in parallel to us figuring out this new idea. And it was 2 days before we were going to Sri Lanka. So we would spend somewhere between 100 to 150 hours whiteboarding this idea, creating wireframes, doing all the detail, creating like our go-to-market strategy, like so much effort. And it was 2 days before Sri Lanka where our team in Sri Lanka had already kicked off all of the work so that by the time we arrived, we could start to finesse it. And then Jacques and I in the car, like we alluded to we were on the plane, like we alluded to in the video, and we went, this thing's going to fail. And
On the plane.
And we were like, this thing's going to fail. And so we pivot in that moment and we were like, we now have 48 hours to like distill this new idea. And so we arrive to Sri Lanka and we go to them, everything you've done, throw it in the bin. We're starting again.
Wow.
And it's like, it was expensive. It was a brutal waste of time, but it was also like, when you talk about, you have to not be attached to your ideas. this is the brutal reality. You have to live the shit you talk about. And it's like, the market doesn't care. The market doesn't care that you spend hundreds of hours. You know, the market cares, like, this product is useful and I will pay for it. What you did to get there, it couldn't care less about. And so we were like, either we're going to pivot now or we're going to find out our assumptions are correct. And then we've really spent time and money. And so let's just throw it all in the bin and start again.
So I'm not going to bring up which business because there's a couple of that I'm in startups with. There's a particular business which, one of them which hasn't been launched yet, invested some money into it, decent amount. And I think it might be off a little bit. Is it something where... Oh man! When I heard that pivot thing a couple of days ago, when I saw it live, I actually thought straight away, "Is this something I should be doing?" Maybe it's something I talk about off air with you. But when in that moment when you're making the decision to pivot and throw the money in the bin, is it an easy decision in the head, or was it very easy?
Never. Okay. none of these things are easy, but like no good decision. I mean, that's not right, but like a lot of good decisions are not easy to make. And I think had this been our first business, it would have been a lot harder to make that decision. But knowing what we know, going through what we've gone through, it's kind of like it doesn't really matter how we feel about it. It's just like when your gut is telling you such strong signals, and we may or may not have talked about it last time, but I spend a lot of time trying to hone my gut to make sure your gut is just subconsciously processing information. And when you do that and then you check in with those potential customers, and they're like, that's not it. And you're like, what are you going to do? And it's one of those, once you've made enough decisions where intuitively you went, this is a bad decision, and then you get to see it play out, and then it is a bad decision, you go, I lost 9 months or a year or whatever the time is. You then go like, I cannot make that same kind of decision again.
Yeah.
And so these things are never easy, but you realize it'll only get harder every day you continue to push out that decision.
Yeah, I can relate to that. You start to build this because of experience, this intuitive knowing that actually if I do proceed, I'll lose more.
Yeah.
And the initial, instead of saying a loss, it's an initial investment of X amount to make me able to go to the next venture.
Exactly.
But I want to ask on that, because for some people that aren't at your stage, from my experience, there's been a bit of a combination between just going out and doing versus ultimate planning, reenactments. What's your advice and perspective? Like, what's your mental framework for this?
So it's a really good point, right? Because some people will hear that and then they might make a decision, and that's not necessarily the right decision, because actually the right decision is just by the process of doing, you will at least learn. And if you continually go like, oh, my gut's telling me this, so I change, and then before you know it, you're 4 years in the hole and you still haven't made a decision, my mental framework is this: a decision is better than no decision. So if you're like really brutally honest with yourself and you go like, what is my personality type? Am I the kind of person that will continually find the next reason I shouldn't do this? Then just go and do it, because the process of doing, you will learn so much more. But it's like, also, where are you finding the data to make that decision? So I mentioned for us, it was a lot of around intuitiveness. That's because we have 12 years of experience. A lot of people will not have that.
Yeah.
So where do you go to find that information? And I think often people will fall into the trap, which I've talked about before, which is they'll go and find friends and family, and those people are the wrong places to make the decision, because those people don't want to let you down. So I won't harp on about that, but it's, where is the right decision? I think what you want to do is go, how can I create something that I can test the market and see if people are willing to pay for it? Let me use a really live example. In our business, Founders Table, we have made a really interesting bet with ourselves, which is every person we hire must have tried to build a business before.
Really?
And failed?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, okay.
As long as you've tried.
Yeah.
Why is that important to us? Because we want people to understand the complexities of business, to really love the process of business. And when they come to us, they can see the value that we will help teach you about business.
I love that, by the way.
It's fun. It'll be interesting to watch it play out. And what happened was we hired a guy, Ben. He's awesome. He's working on our AI side of our business. Again, part of our business is we want to create every one of our team members to be a character on the big wide world of the internet. And so they must build their own personal brand. Ben started doing AI content. Within 3 weeks, it's going nuts. We did not foresee how big this would get and the attention it would get. So Ben comes to us and goes, okay, I actually think there's potentially a product here. And one of the promises we made to our team is we are focused on founders. If you find a product within our business that you can sell to founders, we will back you to test that product and you can become a shareholder in a new venture within our own organization.
Wow.
And that's why we're looking for business owners.
Wow.
And so he said, I think there's something here. Do you mind if we do this? Okay, we go, cool. So we build out a landing page. Within 1 week, we have 6,500 people sign up. And we did a test, which was, we will put a Stripe payment processing gateway. If this many people just pay for something that doesn't yet exist, we know that's a signal that we're going to build this thing. Within 2 weeks, they signed up $250,000 worth of revenue in 2 weeks.
Pre-sold.
Pre-sold, there's no product. We made it really clear.
$250,000.
$250,000. So we said to the people, there isn't anything here, but if you sign up and pay and it takes money out of your credit card, and like what we've done is the moment that happened, we then send them an email saying,
wow,
we don't want to take your money. It's on hold. Thank you for your, believing in us. Why am I talking about that? Because that is the real signal. People will vote with their wallets. And so people might tell you, that's first 6,500 people that you might say, oh, that's a signal. It is a signal, but people willing to put their credit card down and say, I will pay for this, now that's a real signal. And so to come all the way back to your question is like, how do you decide? I think, look at your idea and go, how can I downscope this to literally a landing page, a payment gateway, and see if people would be willing to spend. And set yourself a target. If I get this many, it is clear and obvious that there is something to build. If I don't, there's a problem.
Were you running ads?
No.
How did you get people to the landing page?
Social media.
Organic?
Organic. So
wow,
we see ourselves as a media company. Right now, like the founders table, if you look at the team we have, so we have 6 team members. If you break down their daily tasks, 80% of what they do is media related. And when I say media, it's LinkedIn, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's YouTube, it's just everything social. And so everything we're doing is like 0% ad driven. It's all organic. Why is that important to me right now? Because the problem I see using ads too early on in a business is I don't want to get false signals because I can kind of pay a problem away. Now, I'm not saying for someone like, they're like, I don't have an organic audience, Frank, I can't test with that. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying for us, I would rather see really like the strongest form of signal is you put out something like one of our young girls, Talia, we've been doing this process where each week we do, like I do, here's a business idea, I'll show you how to build with AI and I deliver that piece of content. And then Talia says to me like, should I deliver the same content? I'm like, absolutely. And so she has. In 2 days, she's had 500,000 organic views on her TikToks.
Wow.
Right? And so for me, that is like what a strong signal. And because like if I pay ads, the problem is people will get served that as ads, and like it's kind of like I can't really tell compared to if it's organic and the algorithm goes boom, here you go. I'm like, okay, we are onto something here.
That sparks the question of funding and money.
Yes.
So this time around, like you've got a team. Employees.
We're spending.
Are you going to? How are you going to fund this? Are you going to raise funds? Are you going to use your own equity?
Yep.
Commission splits, like equity shares.
Yep.
Like how are you going to?
So a couple of parts there. Like we're really open at the moment. Like we're open. Part of this journey for us to build this new business is we want to do things we haven't done before. One of those things, we've never raised capital. So we believe probably at the right time we will raise capital. Recently, we've had people approach us and say, hey, even pre-idea because of the attention.
Yeah.
We will do a $10 million valuation, buy 10% of your company. And I was like, I haven't even told you the idea. He goes like, if anybody's obsessed with what they're doing like you guys are, doesn't matter. We'll back it, which is great. However, I also like to bring people along for the journey, just kind of be super transparent. By the time we launch our product, we'll be $1.3 million in the hole.
Wow.
And that's all our capital. Now, I'm not encouraging people like first-time founders to go spend $1.3 million. Like, again, we're doing a much more aggressive take at business this time around because we believe in ourselves and we back ourselves and we know we're doing the right actions each day, that it's an investment to make. But yeah, I believe we will raise capital. Why is that? I think part of the thing when it comes to capital raising that a lot of people don't understand is they just see the number, and the number's cool. The number is definitely great. You want the number, but it's what are the other things that the number can create for you? And so for us, one of those things is talent. If you get like a cornerstone investor, like in Australia, like a Blackbird or something, those are signals to people. They go like, oh, these guys are going to do something special because they only back amazing ventures. The other one is, well, who do they have access to in their network? So it's more about who we would take money from than about the number itself.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity,
Yes.
if you had to buy the right buyer now, could they buy in?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It would just have to be the right one. And really strategic would have to be the right one, not the monetary piece.
Makes sense. I've got the go-ahead to talk about this.
Great.
So it's actually a business we have launched.
You
It's
have
Calibre.
launched?
Yeah, it's Calibre.
Yep.
So Calibre Recruitment is a recruitment agency for real estate agents, primarily real estate associates
Yep.
and real estate property managers, leasing agents. What we do though is different. So we go through we had 1,300 people that applied, go through 2 AI tests that test grit, resilience, stuff that would make a successful real estate agent and property manager. They then get interviewed by a head of talent. From that pool of 1,300, we took 11 applicants. Those 11 applicants will then have a 1-week boot camp where they get trained by the best of the best. So we have Renee Lodens, who was the head of growth for TRG, that works within our business, that works for our business. We've got Chantel, that's the head of property management for Bresic Whitney, that's within our business. So these guys coach and train our recruits before they get placed into the business. Then over the course of 12 months, they then get coached by these coaches every single month via a monthly Zoom. Then they get licensed within 18 months. So they get a full real estate license or property management license. And there's also a $7,500 retainer. So if they decide to leave the business for any what reason, then there's pullback of money, which then starts the retention process as well. So it's not just a recruitment agency, it's a talent agency. The hard thing is, from what I've seen, is price point, because it is a lot more expensive to do it. The hard thing is getting agents to pay nearly double of what a normal recruitment agency would be for this process. Now, I've actually put 2 recruits on myself, which are going through the boot camp process through my Calibre recruitment agency in 2 weeks into my own team. Now, I've seen it happen for another associate that's joined Manor Real Estate, the business that I'm in, that went through the Calibre process, and it works. I can see the value in it. But the hard part is right now is getting the buy-in of agents and agencies to see the value in what we're doing, to pay the extra on top of a recruitment agent. What are your thoughts?
I love that. I love that we always have a live spitball.
Just go hard.
Always. So I'm just trying to process this. It's first thing that comes to my mind is it's solid. Like, it's a solid idea.
Yeah.
But the concept I can't shake is what people say they want and what they'll do is 2 separate things. So a lot of people will complain, and i.e. this is why the need arised. It's really hard to find talent in real estate. You place them, then you have to train them, and then they leave, and it's this constant revolving door, right? That's what you would have heard. And so therefore they say, we just want to find amazing talent. Now, the what people do part is the difference, because the do is, well, are they willing to pay double for it? And that's probably the part that you're encountering. And this is the challenge when we hear certain signals in the market, because it's back to this idea is like people want something, but are they willing to pay for it? And I don't necessarily know how to solve for that. There's a couple of versions of this. So one would be, I would as a business look at like, okay, if I truly believe in this product, what would I be willing to forgo in the first year or two to make this the brand of all brands for talent? And that's what we did in our business in our early days, is we had a saying which was, we'll get them on the next one. There are customers that we would have spent 4 to 5 times the amount to get the customer than what they earned us to service that customer, because we knew that that customer was a signal to the rest of the market, and we knew that delivering immense value was going to be worth it in the long run. And so the challenge we sometimes have in these early days of business is, well, we're delivering an exceptional product, and so therefore we must be paid for it, which is fair and reasonable. But my question I would ask myself is like, if I'm willing to, for that first year, be the same price or slightly more expensive so that I can place more people, so I can refine the process, so I can build a brand. And then when it comes to the other side, people go like, oh, there's no other way to get the best talent. You go, I know. And that's why it costs lots. Because right now what you're having to do is you're having to educate a market on something that doesn't yet exist. It's a you know, I'm sure you've placed 4, 5, 10, you know, small numbers. And so it sounds great, but I don't yet have the evidence and the social proof that it truly will deliver. And so that would be that's the part of me that if I'm really bullish on an idea, I will do that. And that's no difference to the founders table. It's like, I'm willing to invest now because I know and believe it so much that it will pay off.
Yeah, you've just cracked it. That's it. Simple. Done. You've solved the problem that's been weighing on my head since I watched your video 6 days ago, and I was like, damn it, and it kept me up at night a little bit. But now you've solved it, so thank you. Appreciate it. Because the idea is awesome. Like, it's a pain point that we experience ourselves. So that's why we did it. And we're not working with every agency. See, the problem we had is they would take associates from one agent, place it to the next, and grab it from that office and take it to the next office. It's like, what are you guys doing? So this time we're working exclusively in bits and pieces. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
I'll add one more layer for you. So here's, and this is just really contextualized for the audience listening too. Were you building a product like that, which I call that a high-end selling rich things to rich people product? You know, what you can really lean on is this concept of the yo-yo effect. The yo-yo effect is when a kid brings a yo-yo to the school, it will either become a plague and it will soon be banned from a school, or it will fizzle out and no one will bring a yo-yo. And it depends on who brought the yo-yo. Was it the cool kid or was it the nerd? And so if I was building that product, I would just go, I'm going to overservice the shit out of like 4 of the most elite agencies. You know, like just, everybody, a lot of your listeners are real estate agencies. So it'd be like the Alexander Phillips of the world, or those, the Prestige Whitney, the best of the best. And I would go, I'm going to do an arrangement with you for 12 months where we believe in our product. We believe in what the cost is. But I also believe that I'm not yet ready to show you the evidence because we haven't done it. So let me do this. I'm going to place them at the same cost that you have today. For the next 12 months, you're going to get an exclusive costing arrangement that no one else will have access to. And then through that, everybody gets to see like, okay, these guys are placing the best talent. Those businesses are only getting better and better. We've got to do the same. And then when they come through the door, it's like, well, this is the price.
I love it. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Almost building your own social proof.
Exactly.
What's, Frank, been the first domino that you're working on now to make the massive impact in your next venture?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the first time around in business, we really celebrated speed and the pace of execution, which I believe in 100%. But sometimes what that meant is we didn't spend enough time thinking. So just like I said before, a decision is better than no decision. And what would happen sometimes is we would hear something from a customer, within a day we do something and we just move and often not spend enough time kind of zooming out and looking at that long-term horizon. Now I'd never change that because we had a great outcome. There's the other end of the spectrum where people take too long to make a decision and therefore nothing happens. This time we're really celebrating thinking. So we spent, more time talking about the business that we were going to do in the first 4 months before we created a business identity, before we'd done all the things. We'd spent literally, when I say hundreds of hours, I mean hundreds of hours talking about it, and talking about it like almost from the position of like, if we were to write a white paper like Elon Musk did for Tesla, what are the stages and the tranches and like really creating these big ticket moments in time. And then going, okay, cool, that is the end state we're doing now, let's work backwards. And now everything we do is like pass it through the strategy of, well, does this achieve our strategy? And I think we've found the right balance. And so back to your question, is like, what have we done that has made the dominoes fall? Honestly, it's like, it was spending the right amount of time and a right amount of focus to really go like, this is exactly what we want to achieve. And so therefore, every decision must go like, is this decision moving us towards the path, away from the path? That's part one. Part two, I think, is around attention and kind of asking ourselves the question, it is 2025, AI is going to change the world. It's already doing a pretty good job of it. What really matters in the future, like I said before, we believe it's attention. And so I'd say the most important domino has been around our maniacal focus on attention. Like if people, when they come to our office, like we'll ask the team members when they start, like, 2 weeks in, they'll go like, we'll say like, what was the expectation of working with the founders table and what's the reality? And they're like, I cannot believe how obsessed you guys are about making a TikTok. How? They're like, I didn't realize like this is like what we talk about, like when we're in the car together in the morning, when we're going, Jack and I go for a run. It's like you guys are freaking obsessed. That is so wild. And it's because we realize like the value of attention. And I think honestly, nothing would look the same if we hadn't focused on attention. And we're so early on, like there's no revenue, there's none of those things. But I know we're doing the right actions and the right movements to get to the place. Because by the time we get to October, the amount of attention that we're building is going to make it a lot different to last time to launch a product.
You'll have the organic reach to just boom, won't you?
Oh yeah.
Plus a media launch with Bothsides.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go. Question around AI, because it's on everyone's mind. Obviously, a lot of our podcast listeners are real estate agents.
Yep.
How do you think it's going to affect the real estate space over the next 2 to 5 years?
I'm like in two minds about this when it comes to real estate. The biggest thing that's going to slow down the revolution of AI is actually going to be adoption. And so if I look at like our time in real estate, the 12 years it took to get to where we got to, the hardest piece was really like educating the market, getting adoption of technology and embedding into an organization. Seeing what it looks like in our business, which is 3-4 months young, and having to like shape the disciplines of, if you're doing something once, how do you do it again? But this time, try and create a process and leverage AI, and going, well, it's actually really hard to like rewire your brain to be like, don't just do it, try figure out with AI. I think, the 2-year time horizon, I don't see crazy impact because of how slow the adoption curve is going to be. But then at the same time, I'm starting to hear things in the industry which are getting really interesting. Like I'm starting to hear like solid businesses going, we're now looking at either partnering, investing, or putting in people in the business and making pretty material investments to revolutionize the way we do things using AI agents. One of the biggest challenges with real estate is the process to get a listing sold. Everybody here will know this. It's like 350 steps. Some of those are micro steps, some of those are bigger. And a lot of those steps are, you're not celebrated by the vendor at the end of that step. It was part of the process you had to do. Something like a document signing or when the contract's signed, I now got to save it in this folder because I got to be ready for compliance. The vendor doesn't care about that. They care about the price you sold. And so you look at that and you go, well, that is like the perfect industry to leverage it. Because those things are finite tasks that you must follow the same steps. The challenge with real estate is you have it's a very good industry kind of to have a ladder climb. So you enter in property management, but the reason you're there is because your goal is to be a selling agent. Now what that means is people come in, they learn that process, they get good at the process, then they get moved. And so you have the constant revolving door of people who don't quite know the process often. And so again, huge opportunity for AI, because if you do it correctly, it doesn't care about Monday to Friday, it's 9 p.m., it's 3 p.m., it's whatever. It's just the task will be done, and the same monotonous task that a human will look at and go like, this is the worst, it couldn't care less, it'll just do, and it'll do the same and perfectly. So I think what will happen is the smart movers, which I'm seeing now today, are starting to ask the question like, well, should I be doing this? Which means like within a year, some of those will start to make material differences, which will apply pressure because those businesses will be a lot more efficient in what they can do. And property management, I think, is a really big, interesting question mark. Like property management, like the challenge with property managers is you're doing a task which is landlords, sometimes hard to get hold of. The person living in the home, the tenant, is often the reason they're reaching out to you is because something's broken. And so the communication cycle is always like, it's like not very nice. So then you're getting people angry at you, and then all your day is like getting it's just putting out fires. And so it's not a very nice environment to be in. But then a lot of those things will be solved with AI. And so I think, to really bring back your question, I was like, I think it may not be rapid pace, but I think 2, 3, 4 years, like if you're not doing it in a material way, you will struggle to compete.
What about, so you've met my good friend Luke Hecker.
Yes.
Up on the Gold Coast.
Good man.
So, good man. Smart dude. Now, he is obviously deep in the AI space. I'm talking to him all the time about the AI chatbots and talking bots and all the rest of it. He's talking within a year, hopefully you might not be able to recognize if it's actually an AI calling you or not. Do you think that then completely changes the landscape for a real estate agent, because now we don't actually have to make a phone call anymore? Do real estate associates now become replaceable?
It's interesting because there's a lot of those tools out at the moment, and they are, I've heard them, they're very good, right? And I would call them, they're 65% good. And part of the challenge of the adoption curve is people will hear it and they go, well, my associate's better. And so they'll park and they won't try and practice with it. There will come a time that it will be indistinguishable. Probably is a year away, right? It probably is a year away. But like, also there comes a time where every business is doing that. And so the process of making a cold call will no longer work. From like a really macro sense, you'll have this opportunity, which will be a first mover's advantage to use this tool. If I got 20 calls today and every one of them is AI, I will soon no longer answer those calls. So a really good example of this is in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, you don't open your text messages because they have different laws in Sri Lanka where you're allowed to just like, there's databases of everybody's phone numbers, and you're allowed to just send promotional texts. And so I was with Barnaker and he talked about like WhatsApp, and I was like, oh, why are you guys like so obsessed? And he shows me, and it was like 700 text messages. And while he showed me, there was like 5 that came in.
Wow.
So it becomes such a noisy landscape. So therefore it's a useless thing, and it's dead. So to your point, like, will associates become irrelevant? I think what will happen here is there's a lot of people who are really precious when they hear the idea of like, no, like AI will never be because they won't be able to do X. The brutal reality of the world is the 80-20 rule. 20% of people are good up to exceptional. 80% of people are from okay down to terrible. The 20% of people, you'll be fine. You'll be fine, and probably be fine for infinity. It's the 80% of people. It's those businesses that are doing 9 transactions a year, that are like lazily walking into the office each day. They haven't been really practicing scripts and dialogue. They don't really, like it's kind of always just happened, so it'll kind of continue to happen. Those ones are gone. Like those are the people that they should be the most nervous, and not like me just being mean, but me going like, I would start to really go like, how do I level up? Because will a Kev ever be beaten by an AI? Not for a long time, but will the rest? Yeah, probably pretty soon.
So this brings my question into every industry then, because you look at mortgage brokers, you look at conveyancers, all these different industries, you can essentially replace a lot of it with AI now. Personal branding is going to become extremely important. What is the advice for young agents, buyers agents, entrepreneurs looking to focus on building, personal brand, but whilst also actually building a real business at the same time?
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump in with this? Because I'm using AI at the moment with my business.
Love that.
But what I find to be the most value for me at the moment is actually my dialogue I have with ChatGPT. So
Good.
I've literally transcribed my whole life to this machine.
I love that.
From business, personal,
Yeah.
spiritual, like
Yeah.
literally easy. Like, what are you doing then? I'm like chatting to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It knows everything to the point where it's able to like. It's almost like an addition to me. Like I'm a cyborg where
Yeah.
I've like got this access to infinite knowledge at any point in time. It's really powerful. So that's how I'm integrating
Love
it.
that.
More than
me emails. I'm like, you didn't write that, bro.
yeah, like, it's like it's enhanced my ability to be more productive, more switched on, intelligent, rather than outsourcing like the cold call.
Yes.
So to speak.
Like
That's
the best
just from-
barrister in the world when you sent me that email.
Man, I was like, fuck. Mate, we literally wrote up a legal document in like that.
Yeah.
I was like, what,
Yeah.
bro?
It's amazing. And so like in preparation for this podcast,
Yep.
I got it to. We were discussing how would we build $100 million business
Yes.
using the Bothsides brand, and went through like step by step, and like it's amazing. So that's how I've integrated
Yep.
it as a business buyer's agent, so to speak. But yeah,
That's
If
awesome.
I'll quickly add an overlay there, right? And it's a super important thing you've just mentioned. Right now, I believe the most important thing to do is actually just focus on the discipline of using it, to not jump onto it, get a result or two that you're like, oh, that wasn't that good, and then move on. What is most important is you're trying and testing and trying to figure it out. So what you've done there is a perfect and a great example. Now, there's bigger questions, which are data security. I'm giving my life away to AI for now. We'll just park those. It is only as good as the input that you give it. So what a lot of people get wrong, and I want to give like tangible information away for people who go like, okay, I can jump on the computer now and I can actually do something in my business. What a lot of people get wrong when they're using AI, whatever that is, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, insert LLM here. They will ask it a question. And the question is, let's riff on your one. I have a podcast, it's called Bothsides. I would like to get it to $100 million. What would the steps be? I never ask it a question anymore directly. Why is that? Because I am nowhere near as good at asking it a question as is it asking it a question itself. So I will say to it these exact words. You're a prompt expert, and I want you to write me the best prompt you've ever written. The context of this prompt is, I have a podcast, it's called The Bothsides. I want to get to $100 million. I want you to consider every single thing you should consider in this prompt and deliver me back exactly what I should ask.
that's gold.
Your 3 lines of text will give you a response, which will be like, wow, that's pretty good. When you ask it to do that, it will give you a 1-page wall question. You copy it and paste it and give it back to it. The response is 10 to 100x better than the question you ever asked. And the reason why is because we don't yet know the power and the knowledge that exists in it. So we don't know what questions to ask it. And so by telling it you are this thing, it will go, oh, don't worry, brother. I've got every question I should be asked. And then the response is so good. And so my process today is like, I'm trying to take this further and further and further. So now what I do is, again, just takeaway number 2, team, is if I am trying to, let's say I'm focusing on a building block of my business. So let's think about property management for your real estate office. I will go onto Google Gemini or ChatGPT and I'll use the thing called deep research. First things first, I asked it that prompt. I say, you're a prompt expert, write me the best prompt you've ever written. I want to know everything I should know about property management and what makes property management businesses succeed in Australia. I want you to look across the internet. It'll give me the question, I'll paste it back in and I'll choose deep research. It will then go for 30 minutes and it'll research everything it can on the internet and it'll give you back a 20 to 40 page report. Now I'll take that and I will use that now and I will go, this is now my research or my building block to better ask questions. So then I'll take the piece of research and I'll say, okay, I want to create a $100 million business. Here is a piece of research about property management businesses. Create me a prompt considering everything about this research, and then we'll create an action plan. And so it's like trying to go layers and layers and layers deeper to go like, what is the knowledge I can extract? And the starting position is, I'm not smart enough to ask you a question. So what can I do to help you ask yourself the best question? And now, like, the responses I'm getting, and the reason I can do these, like, I'm building a business in 42 minutes, watch me do it, is because, like, I've created structure where the other day I spent a sickly amount of time on the weekend. My wife was with her friends, so I was like, well, why not just get into a cave and think about AI? So I went, did a piece of research, which was, what are the building blocks of business? I then created these 9 steps, and each one of these steps, so the first one would be like, you need to do research. So then I researched what is the best way to research a business idea. It gave me a 45-page report. I turned that into a prompt. And then it was like, you need to build a brand, you need to go to market, you need to, and then so these are the building blocks, and I now just have these prompts, copy and paste, that I can create in the team each week for my content. Will hand over, here is a business idea, Frank, and all of the things that I've done, they've spent 2 hours on it, and I can just deliver that. And so that's how we need to be thinking about it for your business.
That's powerful.
Frank dropping gold.
How do we access that prompt?
Yeah, I mean, so that's weekly stuff I do on my social. So, like, one of the things I figured out right now is like AI is a hot topic. I have an unfair advantage to the market where I can spend my time to learn everything that's happening right now. And so every week I probably spend 4 or 5 hours of like research, because the landscape is changing so quickly. No one who's running a real business has the time to do that. And so I'm like, well, that's my opportunity to deliver value to the market. So I spend that time, and then on my socials, I just literally go like, here is something I've done, here is the prompt, and I send people the document. So like, you know, yesterday or the day before was seen by 150,000 people. Over 1,000 people request the prompt, and we've created prompt documents. Here it is, go.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of AI. You're talking to a lot of people in the AI space. Let's see if we can get a viral clip here. How many people are going to lose their jobs in Australia over the course of the next 5 to 10 years because of AI?
I don't want to let your viral clip down. Okay, so this question is really interesting. I've asked a similar question to people in the space, and there's 2 sides of the coin. I see people who I think intuitively actually believe people are going to lose their jobs. They're in the space and they feel guilty to say the words. So therefore they say like, oh, there's going to be an abundance. We've never been at a better time. And then I see the brutal realities. I sit in boardroom tables, sitting at board meetings, watching people get like, do cutting of jobs because they've found more efficient ways to do it. I'm seeing more and more businesses created that are 2-3-man teams doing $4-5 million revenue. I think what will happen over the next 2-3 years, the rate of job loss will happen so quickly, and the chasm, the time gap between jobs lost and jobs created will be this void. And I don't know how we fill that void up. And so I think it's going to be pretty crazy what's going to happen on the other side of this. I don't think it's the next 12 months. I don't know if it's the next 24, but it's probably on like the 3 to 6 year time horizon. And it does genuinely concern me what that looks like. And you see these businesses go like, oh, cool, we've created an AI for help desk. We've cut like 1,000 people. And you're seeing that like time and time and time again. And I'm only seeing the tools get better and better and better. That being said, that is the macro forces that are going to happen in the world. This steam train, it is gone. There is nothing we can do about it at this particular point in time. And so therefore, what can you do? Well, you could protect yourself and you can create the opportunity that lies in front of you. I truly believe right now is the golden age to build business. I don't think I know I've never seen this before. And I don't think we'll ever see it again. You can take an idea to a business and launch in a market and be multiple millions of dollars of businesses within 6 months. I'm seeing this time and time again. There was a recent product that launched called Lovable. Within 5 months, they're now doing 50 million recurring revenue. We've had people at the founders table just in Australia that have built businesses that are doing 50 million within 18 months of launch, or teams of 2 that are doing $3 million. I had a guy, 17 years old from Ireland, reach out to me on LinkedIn the other day. Hey, Frank, I'm coming to Australia to do a capital raise. I'd love to meet you. And I was like, fuck, he's 17 years old. I'm going to have to meet this kid. That's wild. And so he tells me a story. He's like, I've used this AI tool where I can talk to it and build a product, which is like an app. I've launched that. We have a customer. I've been doing that from my bathroom at school, and I've been talking to investors. I've just done a successful capital raise of a $15 million first round, and we've raised $900,000 US. And I'm like, you're 17 years old. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because he is curious enough to follow what the opportunity lies in front of them. I think people, if you shift your mind and allow yourself to go after what is available to you right now, you can change the trajectory of your life. If you don't, we're going to see what's on the other end of the spectrum.
What happened, and this comes back to the question before, which is having the time to build an actual business whilst also having the time to, because personal branding is going to become obviously more and more important as ChatGPT cuts job or AI cuts jobs. So the question is, how do you effectively still build a business if you're in growth phase and have no money, whilst also still spending the time and energy learning how to integrate AI into business, into your life, plus also building personal brand?
Every decision in business is a trade-off. So you have to realize any one of these decisions, it is at the risk of another one, right? So taking the time to learn AI is going to cost you something somewhere else. My starting position for everybody would be this though. Before thinking me learning AI is going to cut into my business, be a really honest audit of yourself and go, how much screen time am I doing today? And how much of that was valuable?
Hard.
Right? That's it. Like, so most people will be like, I'm 4 hours. And of that, an hour 45 was Instagram. And of that, be really honest with yourself. How much of that was learning on Instagram and how much of that was entertainment? And so my argument is there's not that many people that don't have that little bit of extra time that they could go, I'm going to stop watching reels that make me laugh and I'm going to spend that hour to learn. So that'd be my first piece. My second piece would be this. Anybody who has the position, which is I'm not building personal brand because I don't have the time, I think is horseshit. Why is that? Because it has never been an easier time to build personal brand online. The reason we're talking about the golden age of business is because how easy it is to create personal brand in content on social media platforms. Why is that? Because of TikTok, the way the algorithms changed, they no longer care about follower count. Back in the day, you had to build slowly, incrementally up to have more followers so that people saw your shit. Now, we're a living testament of this. People have entered our business 3 weeks later, they're crushing it, and they're getting like 1 million impressions a month. Because the algorithm only cares about an individual piece of content. Was it good enough? If it was good enough, it will serve it to lots of people. So why is it horseshit that I don't believe you, that you don't have enough time? Because if you just set yourself a discipline up, so like where I started with social media was like, I don't have that much time to prioritize. So what's the most efficient way I can do it? And so where I started was once every 3 weeks, I would sit in front of a camera for 1 hour and I'd film 23 videos. And so no one can tell me they don't have that time. Now, were those videos amazing? No. Did they perform that well? No. But it was at least the stepping stone to build the evidence and proof to me that that time is worth its weight in gold and it's the best use of leverage. And therefore I went, okay, I have the evidence to give it a little bit more time and a little bit more time. And soon it became, well, that is my most valued piece of time. That's right.
Yeah.
And so now some people will say, oh, I don't want to build a personal brand because I don't want my life to be known. And that is totally fine. That's a strategic life decision that you're like, I just don't want people on the internet to see my shit. And I'm like, I get that. But if the idea is like, I don't have time, it's not real. Because a TikTok video, my first video on TikTok, which was about 6 weeks ago, like properly going, I needed to create a TikTok video, took me 7 minutes. I filmed it on my phone. I didn't need any fancy cameras. I edited it on my phone. It happened after work, so it didn't cost me any of my time. That one video was seen by 20,000 people, and I get a message from a guy who had a multi-billion-dollar company in USA on LinkedIn. He said, Frank, I loved your TikTok last night.
Now,
What is the number one mistake you see founders make?
In personal brand building?
Business, personal brand building.
So I'll start with personal brand because I'm really passionate about this. The most common thing people say is like, I'm nervous, I don't want to fuck it up, and I don't want to look stupid. Here's the best thing you can think about. If you do a video that is stupid, no one will see it. it'll be served to 50 people that you don't know, and they won't know you, and they'll move on with their life so quickly, no one cares about you. Only when you're doing something that has value to the algorithm, you'll be seen. And by the time you get there, you've had enough reps in and you'll be better. Realize that people care mostly about themselves. And so when what you look at, you're looking at it, you're like, oh, my hair looks silly that day, or I didn't quite say that thing. No one is paying attention to you that much. They are in a doom scrolling affair, like laying in bed next to their missus, just going, video after video after video. They don't care about you that much. You're fine. And so if you actually have that, it's quite freeing to realize, oh, okay, great. No one cares. Great. So I'll just put it out. And I think that's the biggest thing is there's a resistance to put out content. Yeah. What is the biggest mistake people have in business in general? I actually think, I don't know if it's the biggest mistake, but I think it's the biggest opportunity. It's it's compressing the time it takes between having an idea and execution. So people will ask us like, use that Mischief Yacht example. Like, Frank, who in the team organized the Mischief Yacht? I'm like, oh, it was me. It was on my phone. It was like a text. They're like, we arrived. They're like, everything feels so well planned and thoughtful. I'm like, I spent like 17 minutes to plan this. Why? Because I didn't go, we're going to get a boat. So let me look at every boat available to me. Let me look at all the examples and let me talk to these different companies. It was like, we're gonna get a boat. Whatever I choose is gonna be like 80% good. If I find something else is gonna be incrementally better or incrementally worse, it doesn't matter. Make a decision. And I think if you look over a long-term time horizon and you audit your life and you go like, if I compress decision making down into quicker moments, what is the effect over the long term? And honestly, like it would be such a material change in people's lives. Like I think if there's one thing I can look back at, like the best decision we made was our ability to make decisions quickly. Now, remember I said to you, one of the things I'm celebrating this time is thinking. It's finding the balance. But most people are not on the decision-making quickly front. They're mostly on the overthinking, over what I call shadow boxing. So people will have like, if I do this, then this might happen. And then that person might say this. And then before you know it, you're like shadow boxing a conversation that's not happening in real time. And so before doing that, just do the thing and then find the data from that decision.
Because then no decisions get made.
Nothing
happen. Nothing happens. It's the same as when I podcasted Michael Pallier. He's selling the most expensive real estate in the country. I've got the biggest sweat patches ever on my jacket. I'm like, oh, this sucks. But I'm posting it. Yeah. It has to go out.
Yeah.
No one cared. Yeah. I don't think anyone brought it up. So cool, whatever. Now, you have spoken previously about periods and seasons of life. You're now in a different season of life to when we first met you. How are you now handling it? Last time, when you built Realbase, just for my knowledge and just so I'm correct with this or not, were you already a father?
No.
Okay. So how is this season of life now, which is the same season of life 12 years ago when you started Realbase, how is it different now with kids?
So I've got a second one on the way. I haven't yet shared that on social media.
Congratulations.
I've got a little baby girl coming in August, which just happens to be like 2 months before we launch our business. So I'll be able I'll be able to tell you even better then.
So fun.
I think it's ruthless prioritization. So what has shifted even since our last discussion, but really so much since Realbase, is I had a lot of time on the weekends for my friends. And so every weekend would be something, a dinner, a breakfast, a this, a that. And I would spend like 8 to 15 hours with friends in some way, shape or form on the weekend. The true reality is I spend close to none hours with him on the weekend. And that's just like, I've just made a prioritization decision, which is, Monday to Friday, I have gym partners come. That's like my friends, and we're training together. So we're doing something together and we're achieving. And so by the end of the week, I've got my social cup is quite full. And on the weekend, I'm really selective and limited. And why? Because I value my time with my wife and my son far too much. Now, that doesn't mean I never do it, but it's a lot less than it once was. And a social event will be 2 to 3 hours, not 8. And I think that, combined with how I stack my time with my son, is really important. So just like this morning, he was up at 5:19 a.m. I'm with my 2 friends in the gym. He's in the gym with us, right? So I'm doing the activity, which is I must train, but he is there with me. So by the time I go to work, I have spent quality time with him.
Now, I think it's really awesome. I've seen Jacques post about this. He headed home early one day. He spent some time with his son, which was really cool to see. And it's cool to see there is balance.
Yeah.
Do you feel guilt? And does Jacques feel guilt when you guys go home early and spend time with family?
None. Zero. So our go home early, what we like to call our tradie hours. One of the beautiful parts about starting your own business, you get to design your life. We get to the office at 7 a.m. and we leave the office at 3 to 3:30 p.m. And so I pick up my son from daycare most days, and I'm spending time with him from 4:15 till nighttime.
You've hacked life.
So yeah, I mean, like it's just like that's that point, which is
Well
like, thank you. It's like if I make the time allotted in my day compressed, therefore I must do more because I have a bit of pressure, and therefore by the end of the day I can really focus and spend time with him. Now, of course, you know, I'm in a I'm deep in a season right now where I don't know if I'm ashamed or not, but you know, 3 to 4 days a week I'm waking up at 3 a.m. and I'm spending like 2 quality hours behind the computer doing something. At the moment, it's just crazy AI weird stuff. And I'm totally comfortable with that.
What time are you going to bed as well?
I'm in bed at 7:15, 7:30 every night.
Wow.
Yeah, because I have a 3-year-old son. He needs to go to bed at that time. He's going to wake up at 5, and I really want my 8 hours sleep. So I must, I've shaped my life to make sure we're like in the same time as him. So this is what I talk about the prioritization. Is like, Jacques and I don't think about work-life balance. We think about work-life harmony. How do we bring these two things together? So I never feel guilty about leaving work, but I also never feel guilty about I'm not doing enough as a dad. Like recently, some of my day in the life content has been blowing up, right? And that means it's being shown to people that have never met me, that don't know me, they don't give a fuck about me, so they'll say whatever they want to say about me. And this one has like 1.5 million views, and the most common thing is like, can't believe this guy sells his business for this and spends 40 minutes with his son, you know? And I'm like, it's like, and when I see that, it's like water for ducks back, because I'm like, oh brother, you don't understand, like I spend so much time with him. So I feel no guilt either way, because I've created the harmony, which is I want to spend as much time as I can, but that time I'm spending with him needs to be focused. And so I try create the same intention I have in my work day, in my weekend, which is, if it's my work day, you know, we don't take a lunch break. You know, the moment we get in the car, we're talking about work. The moment we get home, the entire way through, it's just a focus on work. But then on the weekends, I don't have to be on my phone. I can be as intentional as I am with my family.
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Not many people can do that.
So, Frank, if Growth Hub or this new Founders Table does what you're aiming it's going to do, what changes in the world?
I genuinely believe we're going to change the ecosystem of business in Australia within the next 5 years. What does that mean? I believe that Australia will become a place that like really celebrates success in business. Now, I'm not saying we're going to change the entire tall poppy syndrome in all of Australia, but in the business world, we're going to change that landscape where people are going to feel more comfortable celebrating success, sharing their numbers, realizing that we're not competitors, we're all in different industries, and we're in it together, and it's hard. I think that is going to happen. It's going to happen pretty fast. Like, we've left founders tables and see people like create the replica of the founders table in multiple states. Rather than be precious about it, we're like, well, this was our design. You know, the way you change the world, or the way we change a country, is like creating a place where people go like, we're creating the blueprint for what it looks like. Now, what does that mean? My hope is that there are more successful business founders and entrepreneurs in Australia. Now that becomes very big and macro, and I don't know, but that's my hope, is it becomes a place where we are pumping out more and more amazing founders. And what changes in the world, I think that's like now zooming out to like really, really long term, because I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but like my life mission is to make a net positive impact in the world, and business is my vehicle to do so. And so I get this really cool opportunity, which is we get the headline number, the articles written about us, but then people meet us and they go like, oh fuck, you're just a normal person. And that's part of what I do with my content, is people like, the person who says they sold the business for this, but then also is willing to make a joke about laxatives and keeping meetings short, is like, whoa, that's just a normal dude. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to create this realization that like, you don't have to be this like archetype of a person and be like all polished and perfect and stuff. You could just be a normal person. And I want to like inspire more people to be able to do that and have the lens of like, hey, if you bring impact and business together, we could literally change the world. And so inspiring more people on that journey, I think that would be a life well lived.
Like inspiring people to, make lunches 5-star, like your son, right? When you're going through this season of life where you're pushing really hard and there needs to be time spent away from family and you're going on trips, how do you mentally deal with that? Because we're going to be going on quite a few trips here and there this year, and I get a little bit homesick, to be honest with you. How do you actually deal with going away, being away from family? Bit of a weird question.
No, it's not weird at all. I'm just thinking about it. I think it comes back to like, what are the actions you're doing prior? Because, for me, if I've put in the hours, the time, the intentionality into the hanging out, and then we go away and I'm gone away for 2 days, well, it didn't really matter because you can like kind of zoom out and look at the timeline holistically, not in that one moment. So like if I only looked at my life, or if a person only looks at a life in like this 2-day increment, it's like in 2 days you haven't seen your family, like you're a terrible person. Like, but zoom out, like, oh, actually across the year or the week or the month, you've done plenty. Then it's like, whatevs. I am like pretty conscious though. Like, so when we do fly in and fly out, like I try to like, we'll get a 5 a.m. flight and then I try to get home for dinner kind of thing. Yeah. And so there's like a bit of give and take that I've always done, especially if it's like nationally here in Australia.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's, honestly, I don't think I have a perfect answer for that. I just think it's more like when you look at things from a position of seasons, that helps a lot. Like me waking up at 3 a.m. right now, that's not practical. I will not be able to keep that up, but it's because I'm in a state of absolute momentum. I have an immense amount of energy, and I know that this will end up not being a thing later. So I'm like, while I'm in that state of flow, just keep rolling with it.
My one real last question for you, Frank. What would be your best piece of advice for anyone that's in real estate, whether they be a buyer's agent, selling agent, property manager, or real estate agency owner, to know or be thinking about in relation to AI over the next 12 months?
2 things. Number one, don't let it freak you out and jump from product to product, because right now there's going to be plenty of people who are going to walk through your door and sell you the next shiny product. And what matters a lot less is you trying all these different random products, not properly implementing them and getting the dopamine rush of like, we're going to do this, it's going to change our business, and then kind of half-assing using the product and then jumping to the next. So don't do that, because that's going to help no one. I think there's certain things in the AI world right now which you have the comfort to not try and dive into everything. Like, things are changing week by week. Google is just about to launch their version of AI agents, which I'm like, holy fuck, this thing is going to be crazy. But 2 weeks ago, someone else did theirs and someone else did theirs. So if you are trying to follow these trends like we are doing right now, it's going to burn you out, and you will be disappointed in the short term because you're spending more time jumping to the next platform and the next. But here is the biggest piece of advice I can give you. I touched on this before. It's about the discipline. So you have to ask yourself the question, if this task is getting done multiple times in our business, how could I, in a pretty material way, use AI to help solve that task? Realize it will not be done 100% perfectly. It might be 60 or 70% good. So to your point before about like writing emails, Kev's like, hey, it didn't sound quite like you. That is the worst it'll ever be, and it'll only get better. And so the discipline is what matters, because if you do not have the discipline, which is I will at least spend an hour or 2 trying to create little processes in my business, at some stage this thing is going to be on the other end, and you haven't tried it at all, and you are going to be so far behind.
Should people be talking to people like agency owners and agents? Should they be speaking to people like Luke Hekar now?
It's all contextual. So if you're a business and you're doing those really like smaller numbers and you don't have that many levers to pull, I wouldn't be looking at AI agents right now, because those things are going to cost you lots of money and they're not going to give you a material uplift. If you're doing let's say 100, 200, 300 transactions above, 100% I would be doing that. I've been speaking with people who are in that similar space as Luke, which is like they're making really material changes where to the magnitude of, hey, we've figured out that by having AI agents in the process of having your contract signed, so we've all used the digital signing tools, but we also know like once it's signed, it then has to be saved in 7 different places. And they go, that small task, which people don't audit properly, they were like, we save them $60 per contract, times that by 200. And that was one minutia of a task. So I think it's contextual to the size of your business. And think about it not from the lens of, well, I celebrate humans, therefore I'm not going to do it. Think about it from, okay, if you don't want to fire people, which that's my stance, well, how could you make your team more productive?
My last question for you then, Frank, is what's something you're doing now that when you look back in hindsight will be quite obvious?
To who? Is it obvious to me?
The marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good one when you got them thinking.
Yeah, that's good.
What's the first thing that comes to mind if you had to say something?
Yeah, so two things, and the reason I'm thinking about it a lot is because I don't want to just say the same shit I say to make it unique. I think what's going to become really obvious to the market is our focus on relationships. I think as we look back in time, in 4 or 5 years from today, and the world is just filled with noise because a 17-year-old kid can make a business in 3 weeks and people are making content and there's just noise everywhere. And then you went, holy shit, they foresaw that and they doubled down building the strongest human relationships and that's why they can win. I think people are going to go like, fuck, I should have done that.
I can see that already.
That's really powerful. So it sounds like building relationships is the key.
But like, not just like, that I think a lot of people here, they were like, oh yeah, that's obvious, but it's like, it's beyond, building relationships, but it's like, how do you create a feeling in another human that they cannot help but talk about you? That's what I'm talking about. So building relationship is like, I touch base, I give them a text, but it's like, what's the layer deeper? And let me share you a layer deeper so you can get an insight into how our brains work. Have a guy in my network, amazing guy. I think you guys have interviewed him, Toby Pierce. Yes. Toby Pierce and I are good friends. Toby has sold business for whatever $100 million. Toby doesn't need more things in his life because he's got lots of money. So how do you create and build upon a bond with another human that has that level, but you want to be generous? So Toby has a new baby boy launching. His baby child is launching in July. And so I sat for an hour a couple of months ago and I go, what do you get a guy that has everything? And I know that Toby loves business. So what we're building right now is a book called EBITDA. It is the ABCs of EBITDA, and it's a kid's book that I will give Toby the day his child is born.
Wow.
That's cool.
That is all completely designed with AI. That is, the end state of the product will cost me $100.
That's cool.
But it will be something that will feel so special to that person. So that's when I say building relationship, I go, how do you create moments in time that you have so thoughtfully considered that someone goes like, holy shit. That's what I'm talking about when I say building relationships.
Well, you've actually done that with me. So those relationships that I've now built from Founders Table and the people that I now know and I speak to and I just bounce ideas off, even yourself in the chat, it's irreplaceable to the point where I look at it and it's like you said, it's just intangible. You're doing it at such a scale. And I look every single time I see like Josh Morrissey, Gab, all these guys on your boat, I'm messaging them. I'm like, oh, like Luke Hager, I'm like, oh, it's Frank. You're like, love that dude every single time because of that. I now have that relationship with you and I feel actually indebted because of that, because of you creating relationships for me with other people. So I see it firsthand.
Love that. Yeah. Boom. We're going to have a lot of people in debt. It's perfect. No jokes.
All right.
Mate, that's awesome. I really appreciate you having the time for round 2.
No
I know
worries.
how busy you are and how much you value your time. Just one last piece of advice I'd like to get personally. What would be your best piece of advice for us?
So everything's contextual. So I'd start with this question first. It's 3 years today. You cannot believe how amazing the last 3 years have been. What have you done?
So I'm responding back to you in 3 years' time.
Yeah. So you're trying to be in a moment in 3 years' time. You're so pumped how life has been. What's happened?
We were able to, on a global scale, impact the lives of those that are aspiring to be the top 1%. And through that progression, have created an abundance of financial time freedom for ourselves. That's the theory side. If I was to objectively give you numerical answers, it's to be on path to be on track for 100 million enterprise.
For the Bothsides podcast.
The Bothsides brand. Yeah.
The Bothsides brand. Amazing.
I mimic that.
Huh?
I mimic that.
Good. So I do this. That being the end state, how you get there for you guys is purely an attention play. So I would look at what is the most unreasonable things we can do to get the most unreasonable names in the world and start the process of strategically getting them on. So I would be looking like, wave a magic wand, I can get anybody
Tony
in the
Robbins.
world. Yeah, cool. So those, from that, I would call like the biggest of the whales, and I would work down, and I would have my map of people, which I call like my social influence ladder climbing. And I would have them there, and I would go, okay, what are we doing as our daily or weekly or monthly principles to make sure that we are in front of those people, and really map it out strategically. I'll give you a really good example.
Can you give a Carmelo Anthony example too?
Yeah. So I kind of have to anonymize this because I don't want the person to hear because it sounds like I'm a terrible human. There's a person that I wanted to. No, let me change it up so I cannot be anonymized. Okay, got it. James Smith. I wanted James Smith on my podcast because I was like, he's her.
The Pommy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I knew from an Australian perspective, in business, an amazing brand and everything in between. I want him on there. So what people wouldn't realize is it took me 14 months to get him.
Wow.
Probably somewhere between 30 to 40 messages, multiple people, sharing my name to him. And trying to create connections where I could. So I knew we both owned RS6s. So it'd be like a photo of this RS6, sending it to his DMs, being like, know that blah, 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 blah. Something that's a relative value to you. Then it would be, trying to respond things that are like genuine and real. Like it was at 3 a.m. and he's with his child and he's like, oh, kid's screaming. And I'm like, oh, I'm up now. So no one else is DMing you. Boom, send you a message. But then on the day that I changed my car, I then send him a message at the store. I don't really talk about what car I have, but I send him a message of the store that I was at. I go, dude, just left the RS6 club, just entering this club. Boom, I get him. Right? And so it's like, wow. But only through the process of kind of identifying what was important to that person, trying to create a level of curiosity and have like a long-term strategy roadmap to get him. Could I do that? And so that's what I would do for you guys, is I would look at these people and create what are the degrees of separation away. I'll give you another example. I want Stephen Bartlett on my podcast. I've been trying for 15 months to 2 years. I created high quality pitch videos that I've sent to him. I found people in his team. I've sent it to them. I've reached out to his team members. I've done all the things.
Wow.
Because that's the game I must play if I want that thing. And so if I looked at what you guys do, I would go just the same way in business. We go like, who are the influential people that if my business works with, it will help unlock. I would do that and I go like, what is our monthly 1, 2, 3 hours that we're going to spend on those people. And who are the people in their peripherals that if I do a good job to them, that I will be able to get them? And so the last version of that for me would be Chris Williamson. I know that James and Chris are business partners. So Chris Williamson was coming to Australia to do a live show. I had bought James tickets for us to go to a track day together. We went on that track day a week before Chris had gone to do his live show. I then asked James, could you get me tickets to Chris's show? And he's like, yeah, for sure, here you go. And then I said, there's a meet and greet at the end. Would you mind putting in a word for me, James? And so he did. And so I sat in my chair. The meet and greet went for 3 hours. And I was like, strategically, what is the most impactful thing I do? I'll be the last person in the whole place. And I waited for 5,000 people or whatever number it was to do the meet and greet. And there I am at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. I don't have to be there, but it's because I'm going to be the last person. And then I give him a signed copy of the cookbook. And then I'm like, and then he's like, you're the guy James talked about.
Wow.
So it's a game of strategy. And these things, like, it will play out one day. It will happen. It might be 5 years from today. But it's like, what are the things you're strategically doing to chip away to get to that moment?
Do you want to quickly plug the cookbook at the end?
Absolutely. People are hanging around right for now. Eatwithpurpose.net. So I built a cookbook designed for high-performing people. You can cook meals 15 to 30 minutes. But the most important piece here is, you're going to get jacked making these meals, no jokes, is $1 million towards children's cancer. So 100% of the revenue goes to children's cancer. And so I'm about 250,000 towards the target. And so go buy it, please. I'm desperate. I would appreciate it.
Let's go. It actually looks good. It looks good on the kitchen tabletop.
That's right.
My partner said so. She's a stylist, so
love that.
take it.
How good.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much.
No worries, boys.